Welcome to Soundbreaker. In today's episode, we're talking to Marni Wandner, who is a board certified integrative health coach and holistic executive coach for creative and music industry professional. Marni, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so
And for
much for
our
having me.
listeners, my pleasure. For our listeners who might not be familiar with you, would you please give us a small introduction about yourself and before we dive into it?
Sure. Yeah. So as you said, I'm an integrative health coach. I've been working in the music industry for a little over 20 years. Started out in artist management and then went into marketing. Was at a small label group doing marketing, and then started my own marketing agency in 2006. So we were a digital marketing agency forming when we were calling digital marketing new media. So it was a while ago. And then I ran Sneak Attack for about 12 years. It was acquired by the Syndicate, where I ran marketing and business development for a few years. And then just giving you like a little overview of kind of my background, I worked for a digital therapeutic that used music to relieve anxiety called Sona. I was the
I
CMO
love that.
there.
This is something we're gonna dive into it. I'm very intrigued by it actually.
Yeah,
That's one of the
it
things
was
that
such a
intrigued
cool
me.
thing.
Yes, yes,
So
absolutely.
cool. Still
Um,
a big fan.
yes,
And then now I'm
amazing.
doing coaching, and I'm also working with a company called Pixel Care that we'll talk about a
Uh,
little bit more as well.
yes, Marnie, what really, if we go back a bit before you started in the music business and the management and all of that, what really got you interested and said, you know what, this is the path I want to take? Back in your teenage years, I would say, what was the influence, like that influenced that path that you wanted to take?
Yeah. So in my teenage years, my very first path that I was on was to become an actor. That's what I was doing from a very early age. And
Mhm.
that's what I thought I was going to do forever. That was my life path. I was going to major in theater, graduate, move to New York, be an actor. And that's kind of how I mapped everything out. And I did do that until I was living in New York for a few years, did a tour, did the whole thing. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if this lifestyle is actually for me. And I just thought I would take a break from it, from acting. And I was also like a singer and dancer. And it was just, it's a very difficult lifestyle in different ways than the music industry, but in a lot of similar ways. And so I had always, though, loved music, and that had always also been kind of a parallel in my life. And so when I thought about, well, what else would I want to do other than this one path that I'd set out to do since I was a child?
Yes.
I thought about music, and I thought about how could I work in music? And that lit me up, in a kind of new way. Because my family was really big into music. Music was always playing in the house. I was always studying the liner notes, all the people involved, and just always thought that that was a fascinating thing. So
So
to
there
be
was
on
a lot of
the
influence from
business
home.
side, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yes. And so I guess you started in management. What really made you say, "Hey, you know what? I'll start in that. I'll get involved in artist management." What attracted you to that?
Well, part of it was I understand what it's like to be the artist in a way, having been that on that side of it my life to date. At that point, I was in my early 20s, and that I liked the idea of supporting the artist from the other side, and learning
Yes.
about that process, but from a point of understanding what it's like to be on the road, what it's like to create art, and be sort of have there's expectations of you as an artist and a creative. And so that really was fascinating to me. And then I really only knew that it was a job that you could have, because a cousin of mine was a music manager, an artist manager, and I was not close with him. But I knew that he was the manager of the Red Hot Chili Peppers when I was growing up. My grandmother would bring me Red Hot Chili Peppers merch from his mother that would get but so I didn't know really, like, and he wasn't in the music business at the time when I was getting into it, but I knew that it was a job that you could have. And so I started looking for internships, and I found one on Craigslist. So this tells you how long ago that was.
Craigslist. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Craigslist. Oh my God. Yes, that was the place to go to.
Yeah. for
Yes, for
anything.
everything, anything. You're right. Absolutely, yes. Craigslist, and amazing. And that's how you find the job, huh?
Yeah, I found an internship, and I kind of just kept showing up. And I had another job. I was a hostess at a hotel bar, just trying to figure it
It's
out
okay.
as I went. And
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I worked in the hospitality industry for a long time until I kind of got a solid footing in the industry. I did it as an actor, and it's a great thing to kind of support yourself as you're figuring it out. But I just kept showing up, and eventually they hired me. It was a very small company. And I was super grateful for the opportunity. I think they could just see that I was like hungry for the work, and I
yeah.
loved it.
Amazing. Well, you said one key thing that I see a lot of people and life coaches saying, and you are a life coach also. Uh, Keep showing up. Just keep showing up. That's
Yeah.
I would say. What do we say? 60% of it or 70% of it? Keep showing up. Just keep
I
showing
mean,
up.
yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I used to tell that to my interns too, just keep figuring out where you can kind of get in and help and be useful. And, that's invaluable. Just doing the job before you're even hired to do the job is kind of a
Yes.
requirement, I think, in this industry.
Absolutely. Marnie, from management to marketing, and how did managing artists influence your path or your approach to marketing in the music industry?
Yeah, well, I mean, so much of doing artist management, I mean, first of all, it's just being involved in so many aspects of the artist's career and in the music industry as a whole. So that's one of the reasons I loved it. And one of the reasons I tell people when they get in, they're like, where should I start? I'm like, it'd be great to start doing an internship in management because you see 360 what's going on. But one of the things that I really fell in love with was the marketing and the creative aspect of, how do we connect this artist to fans? How do we find the fans? How do we tell people about what this artist is doing? Um, and so I started exploring what that looked like. I first was starting exploring PR and what that could look like. I started doing PR for one of our own bands. So the publicist, Perry Serpa, is amazing, still close with him this day. He was the publicist for one of our bands, Further Seems Forever. And he taught me how to do PR on, and I was doing their tour press. So I was learning kind of how to do it on the job, but it was a different job. And I loved it. It was fun to do. I cared about the band. So it was nice to just kind of like have that connection. And then
Hmm.
I ended up working for a company. I left the management company and went to work for a small label group doing, I was the director of marketing and publicity. So I got to do the publicity that I was just basically had just learned how to do and dig into the marketing.
Well, from your path, I mean, I had a record label, been in the business for music business myself for a long time, and from the label side distribution, and I see you had, how should I say, it's like you did all the proper stops. First, you started with artist management, so you learn the business, you learn the struggles and the challenges that artists have and the industry have, and then you went to marketing and being involved in PR and promotion, all of that. It's one of the key components to the success of any artist, of any music. And then from there, you kind of said, hey, you worked for a record label also. So you saw the challenges and the struggles and the infrastructure of a record label. I'm surprised you didn't say, I'm starting my own label. I know how to do it. I know what all flaws are. I know what's wrong, what's going on. I'm going to fix it and I'm going to make the proper record label. Back in the day, I seen it. A lot of people used to do that.
Yeah. I don't know if I did know how to fix it and make it better. I don't think that's where my head was at the time. I think I was really interested in the creative process of marketing, and really what kind of did it, like kind of flipped the switch for me, was thinking about doing, somebody had approached me about doing digital marketing for a band that I
Yeah.
loved.
Yes.
And I was like, you can do just the digital marketing part? That's what I've been wanting to focus on. I love that. That's so fascinating to me. Mind you, this was 2006. So to be able to focus just on the digital side, I mean, this is like the beginning of things like MySpace and stuff like that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to try that out on this band. I hadn't even started my company. I was just doing their digital marketing. The band was called
Yes.
Priestess, and I still love them. And they, I was just able to kind of be creative with setting up different kinds of campaigns and promotions and going to like non-traditional outlets for things, and bringing together like local tattoo shops and different online outlets, and just figuring out how to make it work and introducing people to this band. And I loved the digital aspect of marketing, so that's kind of probably why I went that path and not the like, let me start a record label.
What drove you to start Sneak Attack Media, which is your own marketing and promotion, agency for music artists?
Yeah, I mean, I I joke that I kind of started it accidentally. I started working with this band, and then started working with another band that was like, hey, their manager was like, hey, can you do what you did for this band, for this band? And then it just sort of, I started getting clients, and then I
Hmm.
was like, I think I told myself I would do this until
Uh-huh.
I got a job, my next job. And then someone offered me a job, a label offered me a job, and I was like, actually, don't. I think I want to keep doing this for a while. And I didn't know how long I would do it for. I said I would give myself a year, and I ran the company for 12 years. So it was a
Wow,
long year.
amazing. Amazing. I mean, what's some of the biggest, should I say, artists or successes you came across and you work with at Sneak Attack Media?
I mean, I worked with so many different levels of artists, but some of
Or the ones
the,
that left an impact on you, like these
yeah,
some of the people.
totally.
Yes, yeah,
I mean, I worked really closely. I worked with Lou Reed for a long time, and that was probably one of the most impactful. I got to, kind of be involved in different projects that he was doing at the
yes,
time, from like music projects to film projects that he was doing. That was really awesome. His camp was amazing, his team. Um, and then I just worked with so many cool indie artists over the years. Like I still talk about like my second client ever was a band called Annuals that I then worked with at different, points of their career over the years. I worked with, let me see who else, David Crosby was another artist that I got to work with later in the Sneak Attack years.
yeah,
Tori Amos was an incredible one too. I worked with on a few of her records with
amazing.
her label, and she was like, you know, when you meet somebody that you have listened to their music your whole life and it meant so much to you, and you're like,
Yes.
child or not child, my like teen years were like, shaped on her songs. And then I got to like work with her and get her input on stuff and do creative projects. That was just really valuable, really meaningful, not valuable. I mean, valuable too, but it was just really like impactful to me as a human.
So let's take it for a sec. Take it back. So you almost got a job, but you started doing your own freelance work, and you say, "Hey, I want to continue doing what I'm doing." And that's when Sneak Attack was born. 12 years later, you managed to sell the company, and that's amazing. That's a major accomplishment. You sold it to Syndicate, correct? Syndicate,
Yeah.
yeah. And can we? It was privately owned, correct? Syndicate, and they just bought out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an
Was
independent
it?
company.
And when you sold it to them, was it something say, you know what, I'm gonna decide to take a different path, or you went and worked for Syndicate? Also, you were part of the package.
Yeah, yeah, I went and worked with them. I love that company and everyone involved. I had been, you know, in touch with one of the partners, John Landman, for years, and we would get
Yes.
together and talk about owning a business and owning a, marketing agency and all the things. And we always said one day we're going to do something together. And it kind of just happened where I had gotten to a point with Sneak Attack where we had kind of two um, pieces. It was the PR, we would do PR and kind of digital marketing, and then we were doing social media. And I just felt like I had run my course with the PR, and it was mostly online PR. But at that point in whenever it was 2018, 17, 18, PR was mostly online, right? So saying that you did online PR was like a moot point. So I was looking for a company to partner with to take over the PR business because it was still coming in. A lot of people knew us
Hmm.
as a PR company and would,
Hmm.
hire us for stuff. So I approached John and I said, would you want the business that they have a great PR company or PR department? So it kind of, he was like, yeah, great. So we worked out that. And then it just kind of evolved into, okay, we're working really well together on this. This is super fun. Um, they didn't have a digital marketing department at the time, so
You did.
and I did. So it was, hey, should we just, bring what you've created into our company? And I loved them. So it was just, I had, had several conversations over the years with other companies in the same vein, but this one just felt right. And
Hmm.
I loved that they were wholly independent, which I was too. And I loved the artists they worked with. I loved that they worked with like brands and movies and other stuff as well. So it was just a really good fit.
Wow. Were you happy with the numbers?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, it was
Great.
good. It was just nice to like, it's less about the numbers and more like, is this a good place for my company and for my team? Because my team were with me, like that, quotient of people
I
that were with
like
me at that
that. You
time.
cared about the foundation, the infrastructure, and the team that you put together. You didn't want it just to go kind of, like to get diluted to something else.
Right.
I
Yeah.
like that.
No,
That
it was
you.
very important that it was a small company. I mean, at the end of Sneak Attack, we were four people, you know.
Oh, wow.
The biggest Sneak Attack ever was nine people. It's a small company. So I wanted to make sure that I was happy, first of all, that it was going to be a nice place for me to work, and that it was, that we could continue to foster the culture that we
Yeah.
had built and just
Hmm.
be in a bigger, family kind of.
Wow. You must have been
Yeah.
proud that, hey, you're like, I did something. I didn't imagine that I'm going to actually to sell or exit as a business that I built. Wonderful. Um, now, okay. Management, marketing, being an entrepreneur and exiting a company. And then on top of that, you went to something else. All that experience you gathered by working at labels, marketing artists, managing artists, are obviously very diverse in the music industry. So you really have a lot of knowledge and experience there you accumulated throughout the years. What drove you to apply all of that experience, all that knowledge to say, you know what, I'm going to get involved into health coaching in the music business? What drove you to that idea? What was the main that trigger, the main point that say, you know what, this is what I want to do, or this is something been in the back of your mind all these years that say, I want to do my passion project. This is what I would love to do.
Yeah. I mean, the trigger really was my own burnout, which happened, probably midway through my tenure running Sneak Attack. I just had hit a wall with how hard I was working and everything that I was doing, and how I was handling the stress. I really didn't have, I'd always been interested in wellness and really was, a fan of taking care of yourself and eating right and all these things, but I still kind of didn't have the right tools to handle all the stuff that was coming at me, running a business,
Hmm.
just, living in New York City, traveling a lot, just being
Hmm.
responsible for, I just took it all on.
Hmm.
Which a lot of us do. So many of us do, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing now. But um, once I recovered, I'd worked with some really great integrative practitioners. I went that route because I'm a fan of, kind of holistic wellness. I'm a fan of Western medicine as well. But it was a nice combination of both. And I really had changed a lot in my lifestyle. I changed the way I was eating. I changed the way I was working. I integrated some, mindfulness techniques into my life. I was setting boundaries for the first time ever in my life. I was never ever the person to be like, no, I can't do that. It was just like, yeah, I'll figure it out. Okay. Um, and so everything really changed because I think if it didn't, I would have had to stop doing what I was doing. And that was not an option for me. I loved it too much. So that was kind of an eye opening thing for me to see. I think there's a lot of other people dealing with this and we're just not talking about it. We didn't use the word burnout then, at least in our industry. And so I started thinking about how I could start helping other people in that way. And I was like, well, I'm running a company full time. I'm pretty busy right now. Like, I don't know what kind of degree I can, do I don't want to like become a doctor. Again, I do this while still running my company. And I discovered wellness coaching. Wasn't really a well-known thing at the time. Now it is a big business. In terms of just people getting, wellness and different types of coaching certifications. So that's really exciting because I think when I got my certification, people were like, "You're doing what?" So that
What
was
was the certificate? What was exactly the certificate about for
it
wellness
was
coaching? What kind of
yeah, it was
certificate you get for that? I don't mean to be ignorant, but just for our
no,
listeners
I'll
and
tell
viewers
you,
and
yeah, no.
myself. Yeah.
It's a certification as an integrative nutrition health coach. And there's many different certifications that you can get, even just within health coaching. This is just the program that I had found that worked with my life. It was a year-long program I could do online, and it was really fun because I got to like dig into all these different dietary theories and how the body works, and how to actually coach people, which is not just telling them what to do. It was really wonderful, and I loved it.
So
And so
you
I
took it from a kind of natural, scientific, but still with naturally, holistic way. You took that kind of
yeah,
approach.
holistic in the way of looking at the whole person, so looking
Mm,
at, well, how are you sleeping, what are you eating, how do you manage your stress, what's your job like, um not just like, oh, you're stressed out or your stomach hurts, let's look at your stomach. It's like, let's look at what's contributing to this, so that we're not just like making you feel better, but we're fixing the root of the problem.
hmm.
Yeah.
And how did you get clients? Like, how did you? I mean, uh, I understand the music business itself, how to get business. You create the network, you dig into it, you run into people. But now you're talking about a whole different arena here, and something called digital wellness solutions.
Digital, I mean, yeah, I mean, it was at the beginning, it was mostly in person. I mean, just in terms of
Where
where
would you
we are
get them?
now with everything being on Zoom. How do I get my clients? I mean,
Yeah,
they were
cold
people that I
calling,
knew.
LinkedIn.
No, no,
Uh huh.
no, no. I mean, this was 2015 when I graduated my program. So, I mean, at that point, I would tell people that I was also very kind of secretive about doing health coaching as well, because I didn't think for some reason that it would be perceived well for me to be a coach and running a business. I was very concerned, probably weirdly now, because it's so okay to be so many different things, which is amazing. That I was like, what if it's confusing that I'm running this digital marketing company, but I'm also a health coach? What will my staff think? And then gradually that kind of subsided. But it was kind of like, if you knew, you knew, if you knew me and I
So wait
talked
a
about
second.
probiotics, then
So you started the health coaching while you're still running your own marketing agency, correct? Before you
yes.
sold it.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh. So something on the side you were doing, something that you love and enjoy doing.
Yeah, and I wasn't necessarily focused in like I am now on the music industry and creatives, but that is my network. Those are my people, and that was a comfort, I think, in the people that I still see this in my clients that are like, "Oh, you understand my lifestyle." So if,
Hmm.
there's a lot of different coaches out there and types of people that are, nutritionists and, all kinds of different people that can help with different things in that space. But for them to not understand why it's not easy to like go to bed early or eat in a certain way or cook 5 nights a week, or, it's like, well, I'm out at shows right after work until 11 o'clock at night. What do you mean meal prep? So I think that was like a big thing of being able to understand the lifestyle as a music industry professional
Got it.
and
Got it.
apply it to that. Yeah.
So what are you saying basically to get the mind right? You know how everybody, a lot of the life coaches say, it's all up here, it's all in your mind. But to get this right and to get it on the right path and focus and doing whatever you want to do and achieve what you want to achieve is comes from here. So the health has to be right, sleeping good, eating right, which is diet,
Mm.
and staying active. And what else? I'm not a health coach, but I love that type of lifestyle and that type of approach because it does. Because if you're healthy, then your mind works better. You're not focusing on other issues that you're having, you know, uh, being stressed. And sometimes stress comes from lack of sleep, lack of great diet, lack of resting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
it's both, right? So
mhm.
if your mind and your mindset is not right or not,
Yeah. Yes.
working for you, that's going to affect your body. If you're not taking care of your body, then your mind and your mindset's not working. And you've got, so if you're not taking care of your nervous system and that is going haywire, then you're definitely not making, good choices in terms of your body and your health lifestyle. And then
Yes.
your mental health is not good. So it's all connected. And that's what, going back to like the holistic idea, is I think people think of the word holistic and they think of like a vitamin shop, and like kind of, but like it's also more of just looking at the whole picture, looking at everything that's going on, top to bottom, and all the sides.
Right. I didn't imagine a Soundbreaker episode that focuses on music, music business, and music tech. I get a lot of music tech startups on the show that talk about the healthcare and the health being of people in the music business, actually, because yes, we do get burned out. I've been in the business for 30 years. I don't want to make myself look old, but yes, I have been in this for a long time. And I know about burnout. I know about, yes, I'll take care of that. We'll do it later. Working long hours, getting up early and going to sleep at 1, getting up at 7 or 6. So yes, I know about that. Absolutely. Um, Marni, you work for you work with Sona and Pixel Care. How did that influence your approach? Talk about, we'll go back to the digital wellness solutions.
Yeah. Um, so Sona is a company that I worked for a couple years ago that I love. It's an app that uses music to relieve anxiety. Um, I got hooked up with them initially because I knew the founder, who used to be and still is a music producer who started the app. And I initially brought them in as a client at the syndicate, and we were doing their marketing. And then when I transitioned out of the syndicate and wanted to focus on wellness things more, they invited me to come on board as their CMO.
Yeah.
And I did, and it was such a fun experience to like build a build some wellness technology with it was wellness and music and digital. So it's like all the things that I loved and had experience in. It was such a cool experience.
It is.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Chinese five elements in mythology. Help creative professionals manage stress.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and just going back, just before we go to that, I wanted to
Please.
also tie in the pixel care element too, before we
Yeah.
talk about those elements. But
Yes.
that's kind of another natural sort of, it's a digital, it's an app as well, that focuses on the patient experience of the fertility treatment world. So, and it was started by a pharmacist. So that was another way for me to bring in, obviously, there's not music involved there, with the actual app. But there are so many people in the music industry that are, going through fertility treatments and dealing with this kind of thing. I am actually a former fertility patient as well. So it was a really meaningful thing for me to work on too. And so I'm working with them now as well as coaching. And it's been amazing to just kind of bring this piece of technology to patients and help with the patient advocacy side, which is not very different than helping artists advocate for themselves in the space of music. So it's a really interesting tie-in. It's kind of all related.
Hmm. All right. Let's talk about the Chinese five elements
Yeah.
mythology.
Yeah. So if have you ever had acupuncture or gone to see a Chinese
Y-
medicine
Well,
doctor?
okay, I'll say it on camera. I like working out. I do CrossFit, and I always hurt myself. Joints, knees, back, and I do usually for my knee actually because I'm trying to avoid operation. I do a lot of crazy stuff, and he pretty much really we do the acupuncture every time. But he ties it up to kind of he put it in and with electric shocks for
Mm,
like
hmm.
yeah for like I would say 5 minutes maybe, and you feel like your muscles are working, but it
Like
helps
they're like,
so much. Yes, yes, and it's like there's a pulse there, you
mm-hmm.
know, and amazing. I love it. I love it. I love it. It helps me to do squats, to do a lot of things that I always, with CrossFit because you have to be jointly available and flexible. you know
Yeah,
so all of these things, it kind of helps me to continue to do what I like to do,
that's
even though I do
awesome.
only do it 3 times a week. But yes, the needle thing is absolutely great. And for my back, sometimes I hurt myself, lower back, it does help. So I do use it in my elbows. Yeah, mostly my joints. Yeah,
Awesome.
not
Yeah. So,
personally. He does it. The
well, someone
chiropractor
else is
does.
doing, yeah,
Yes,
yeah. I always
yeah,
say, like, I've
yeah.
been a
I
recipient of
hate needles.
acupuncture.
I hate needles. I always close my eyes. I hate needles. Yes,
Yeah, watching them, yeah, even though they're not going that far, it's like, oh, you're putting that
yes,
in me. Yeah.
yeah.
So I am not an acupuncturist. That takes years and years of study, and I have high respect for people that are licensed acupuncturists. But um, I got certified in a methodology called the five archetypes, which was created by a woman named Carrie Davidson, which is based on the Chinese five elements. So if you've ever
Right.
had that, those conversations with a Chinese medicine doctor and acupuncturist, the five elements are wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And they correspond to our
Fire,
life,
earth, metal,
like
and
the
water.
things that are in our life. Yeah. And
Yeah.
we all have all five of those elements in us. It's just how much of each do we have kind of
Yes.
corresponds with what we, what our strengths are, where we get in our own way, what patterns repeat, what we need to work on and get more access
Hmm. Very interesting. Okay. Um, what I mean, you know what? Before I ask the next question, you've been through it all. Is there a book coming
to.
out?
A few people have asked me that, and I'm like, I don't know. I've had a few ideas over the years, but I'm not definitely in the place
Yeah.
yet to write a book. But maybe once it all comes together a little bit clearer, maybe
You
one
know,
day.
this conversation, this interview turned out to be extremely intriguing, actually, and a little bit different. But it's good. Different is good sometime. And I like it because it took the approach of talked about the music business, and then there's the other side of it, which nobody talks about the health, the health, the mental health, mental happiness of it,
Yeah.
people who has been burned out in the music business.
Yeah, it's getting
Um,
to be a more of a topic now, which I'm really grateful for,
mhm.
that people are talking about it and being more open about it. Artists, people on the industry side, there's many organizations now that support wellness in the industry. So it's good. It's nice to be a part of that, and it's nice to see that it's actually something that people aren't like sweeping under the rug anymore.
Hey, we got an idea here. Let's do a podcast together on the music industry, mental health care, or
There you go.
health, or mental happiness. Yes, absolutely. I love it. I'm a big fan of it, actually. What common challenges do creative professionals face, and how do you help them overcome these challenges?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because sometimes people ask me, like, do creative people have different health challenges than people that aren't creative? And I think the first thing is defining what a creative person is. And so many of us, either are or identify as creative people, whether we're actually making art, that it's music, or it's,
Yeah.
we're a visual artist or a photographer, or entrepreneurs. I mean, I absolutely consider entrepreneurs creative professionals. We're creating something from nothing, but anyone that has kind of like a job where they're actually making something, and that's the job, that's marketing, that's PR. You're crafting something at some point. I think that there is a lot of there's a thread line or a through line, of things like every day is not the same, things like your schedule is not the same all the time, things like you have to think in a different way, than you would if it were a more kind of linear job. So I see a lot of creative brains that have trouble with, how do I eat to support my brain in that way, in the way that I need it to function? How do I sleep better? Because I stay up late and I'm thinking about things and I have ideas, and I, wake up in the middle of the night, and there's a kind of a common theme of anxiety. That's a little bit more on the kind of mental health, arena, but it's all kind of integrated. And then it's like, well, how does the anxiety show up in our bodies? And people getting stomach aches and thinking it's something that they're eating when really it's the way that they're thinking. And so all of these things are quite common. I see with creative professionals, no matter what the actual job is. There's a lot of like, I can't stop ruminating on things, and I, need to sort of figure out how to break through this. Or there's imposter syndrome, there's a lot of self-doubt, and then there's a lot of like the practical things of, I'm on the road, how do I eat the way that I need to or want to eat? Or I, like the sleeping thing that I was talking about, or how do I integrate exercise when I work 17 hours a day? So those are just some of the things that I work on with clients.
Lovely. Marnie, what tips would you have for the next wave of creators and professional who wants to make their own mark like you did? When they watch this episode of Soundbreaker and see how motivating you are and how inspiring and, and driven an entrepreneur and the way you carved your path in the industry, it's definitely something different and very intriguing and amazing. So what tips you would have for them? Because they say, hey, she did it. I'm going to do it.
I mean, I think that's a great tip of kind of using people as a model instead of like, oh, I think sometimes I was talking about this recently with someone that it's easy to be like, oh, she's already done that, or that person's already done that, or, I want to do that, but that's not for me. But using that, be like, oh, that's totally possible. I could do that too. The other thing I would say is what we were talking about earlier, just showing up, just doing the thing, not waiting for an opportunity that someone's going to give you to say, hey, that thing you're really good at or that you really want to do, here's a way to do it. Just do it. Just like start doing it and, bring that to somebody. Hey, I made this thing, or I do this. Could this be valuable to you? And I also think that it's really, really important as a creative to build your community. Um, have people that, do things differently than you, but that understand the space that you're in, that you can come together with and grow up with, and, really kind of have people that you can rely on and depend on and be yourself around, and vice versa. That goes really far, because being a creative, being an entrepreneur can be really lonely. And without the community, it's really hard.
Let's see. So what we take from it is keep showing up, don't procrastinate, and just do it. Like Nike said, just do it. There's no perfect timing for it. um, Before we wrap it up, and would love to extend this interview. I'm really enjoying it. Anything that you'd like to share with us? Anything that for our viewers and listeners and your followers and your fans kind of expect for the next month or so or two, and towards the end of the year? It's like, hey, there's something new I'm doing, or if you have something you want to talk about, advertise or mention for everybody to look for.
Um, I mean, I'm always kind of doing, I'm always doing something. Um, I'm always launching new, kind of programs and things like that. So I would
Yes.
say just keep an eye on my Instagram, which is really where I post mostly. It's just my name, Marni Wandner. And my website, it's just marniwandner.com. So yeah, I'm always, trying to get better about emailing, using my email list to extend opportunities, but I'm always announcing new things that I'm creating. So stay in
Well,
touch.
definitely
I'd love to hear from everybody.
we're going to be looking forward to them. Well, thanks for joining us today. This concludes today's episode of Soundbreaker. Please make sure to follow us on socials and stay tuned for our new episode, and see you. And like Marnie said, do not procrastinate. Just do it and show up. Keep showing up. Thank you. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.